Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Just stopped up talking with American country singer-songwriter David Frizzell. We talk about his first radio show in Kermit, Texas, experiences with iconic artists such as Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash, etc., relationship with brother Lefty, signing with Columbia Records, song I Just Can't Help Believing, regular appearances on Buck Owens' All-American TV show, recording for Capitol Records, behind the creation of duet song You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma featuring Shelly West, and more. So without further ado, here's my conversation with David. David, hello.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good.
You're up there keeping warm, are you? I figure you figured that out.
I mean, Toronto's a great city. It's a very diverse and a musical city, I would say.
I remember doing a big show up there one time. Me and Shelly West and Dottie West was there, and a whole bunch of different artists. The Gatlin brothers was there, Larry and all of them were there. We had a show. It was just incredible. It was just great to be a part of it. But that's been a while. I can't remember how long ago that's been, or exactly when it was or anything. But I remember being there. So a lot of people came to the show, and it was just an incredible show with that kind of people on it.
Absolutely, David. And you're from El Dorado, Arkansas originally, right?
Yeah, we called it El Dorado. They
El
call it El Dorado
Dorado.
somewhere else, but it's El Dorado, Arkansas, as far as I know. But I tell you, my dad was working in the oil field work with oil fields, and he was mostly in and out of Texas a lot. And we were in Texas until I was getting ready to be born, and so they took me over to Arkansas, where his mom and dad lived, and my grandmother and grandfather, and his on his side of the family. And there was actually three of us born there, and then we were taken right back out and taken back into the oil fields of Texas. But yeah, El Dorado, Arkansas, beautiful spot, beautiful place, and still is.
Absolutely. And I know you've had a lot of experiences in your career, and from obviously your relationship with your brother Lefty. I was listening to your interview with Nan Kelly. And what a great interview you did. It was so interesting to me, and just listening to that interview that you did. And so can you talk about your relationship with your brother?
Oh my goodness gracious! He was absolutely not just for me, but just to anybody that ever got a chance to hear him. He was an amazing guy, one of the great songwriters, one of the greatest singers there is. And there was a whole bunch of us, a lot of different people, men. I think at the top of that list of people who really uh, learned everything by listening to Brother Lefty was me and Merle Haggard, and we got to be really close friends with Merle and throughout the years, and but Lefty was one we learned how to get on the how to get on the stage, what to do while you're there, and how to get off the stage. We learned everything from him, whether good, bad, or indifferent. I learned everything. I started working with him at a very early age, and it was just like going to school. You know what I mean? And going to the school, and he taught me just everything. But like I said, it was not just music, but just how to walk down the street. You know what I mean? Just all kinds of everything there is to know about anything. We pretty much learned it from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you probably have those casual conversations with your brother Lefty while you're walking down the street or anything like that.
Well,
Um,
I tell you what, in those days, just real quickly, in those days during the touring season, um, there was you might work a Friday and a Saturday someplace or something, but on the Sundays they had these big package shows. They don't have them so much anymore, but they used to have them back in that particular time. I was just a kid, 16, 17 years old, and I was running with him, and so Lefty was invited on every one of those shows, and everywhere Lefty was invited, so was I. So I'd go out there with him, and but we got to work with all of the biggies, all the other artists in the day, like Johnny Cash, Johnny Horton, uh, George Jones, just everybody that was anybody in the business, and Carl Smith, some of the great people that had a chance to work with. Marty Robbins, just goes on, and I can sit here all day telling you some of the people was on those shows. But those package shows would host, like 15, 20, maybe 25 different acts of the day. and Lefty was on every one of them, so I was invited to be a part of it too, and so we learned everything. Not only did I learn how to do everything from just watching Lefty, but I got a chance to watch Johnny Cash. I got a chance to watch George Jones, how they did it. I got a chance to be right there, and I'd stand back behind stage there, and I watched everybody. And I remember my brother Lefty telling me, when we got, we did those for a lot of them. And one morning, I remember after we got back off the tour and was sitting, he lived out of California at the time, and out of the San Fernando Valley. And I remember him coming by, and one morning, as I was sitting in the pool hall, the pool room in the house, and I was sitting there, and he came by, and I was picking guitar like I am right now. I'm messing with the guitar. And he came by and he said, David, he said, you're right on, buddy. He says, learn everything you can from everybody out there. He says, you got the perfect opportunity to see and be around everybody. He said, learn everything you can from me. He said, learn everything you can possibly learn from everybody. He said, but at the end of the day, just want to mention that we don't need another Johnny Cash. Johnny's doing that very well. Johnny's holding that part of it down pretty well, very well. He says, and we don't need another me. He said, I'm having trouble with him myself, he said. And he said, so we need a David Frizzell out there. We need a David Frizzell. So learn everything you can from everybody, but at the end of the day, we need a David Frizzell. And I've remembered that throughout all these years, that, to be a David Frizzell, learn to love everybody, to do everything. But at the end of the day, be yourself, be who you are. And so I learned that from a very early time. And when it got time for me to jump out there and sing and do something, then I was ready to go.
Absolutely. And, like, that's so interesting that you were mentioning that, because I was going to ask you, do you feel like you're still learning, even though with all the experiences you've had in your career already?
Oh my goodness. And I tell you what we missed here, and I've never had this ever happen to me before. And I've been singing pretty much professionally since I was about 9 or 10 years old. And then I was out of Kermit, Texas, which out of Snyder, Texas, and I was part of a radio show there, and I was 10 years, I think it was 9 or 10 years old, and I was singing Lefty songs then, and I was singing "I Love You a Thousand Ways." Matter of fact, my wife Joanne has got a copy of me singing that when I was 9 years old, which I don't let her play it for anybody, basically, but she's got it. And and then all those years of working with everybody and playing with everybody, there was a time though we had that pandemic thing going on in the last 2 or 3 years, and it kept us, people like myself, from getting out and being with the people who wants to hear you sing those songs that you've got. And it just, I've never had that happen before, where something would keep me from being able to get out there and being around people and singing my songs, singing my brother Lefty songs, singing my friend Merle Haggard songs. And so now that we're getting back into touring again and getting back out and being with the people, I'm as happy as I can be. And I'll take Lefty with me everywhere I go.
Absolutely. And do you feel, with, you just mentioned about the pandemic, do you feel like that was the most challenging part of your career already?
I think it basically probably was, where we were not able to get out and go sing our songs and being with the fans who who really would like to hear those songs again. And one of the things that my brother taught me too, back in my life of working with him and being out there with him, driving down the road with him, laughing and talking and making, all the stuff that we did together, is Lefty had, from the very beginning, but his very beginning, back in 1950, he had 2 #1 hits in that year, and he went on to have a lot of #1 hits. And the best thing about it too is that he wrote those songs. Not only did he sing them and all of that, but he wrote them as well. He was a great songwriter. He taught me. He said he taught me, even he had things that he taught me about how to write songs and how to sing them for people and how to do this and that. And I learned it all. I was a great student I was a great student. I listened to everything he said. There were some things that I started doing on my own, and but he encouraged me to be my own. He encouraged me to be who I was. And matter of fact, I can't remember him ever saying, "No, David, you can't do that. I wouldn't do that, David, if I was you." No, no, never have I ever had that in my life. He always told me I could do anything. And luckily, I tried about everything, and I'm still doing it. And Merle Haggard was the same way. I never. He was such a great friend, and I did a lot of things. I'd call Merle, talk to him, and I never had him eat. It never ever said no to me. Oh, I'd ask him, "Oh, come back to do this TV show with me." Okay, I'll be there. Let's go in the studio and let's do something. Okay, I'll be right there. He never ever said, "David, I can't do that. You know, I don't have time to do that." Or it was always, "Yeah, I'll be there when you're ready to go." And with people like that around you, you can't do anything but good.
Absolutely. And do you feel like the experiences that you had when you were watching Johnny Cash or George Jones really sort of kickstarted your whole fascination behind music?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know anybody that ever seen Johnny Cash or George that wasn't completely knocked out. I mean, you can't. You used to watch Johnny Cash. Come on, you watch Johnny Cash. You're going to absolutely want to. He's the most incredible guy. I got to know him and talked with him, laughed with him, and partied with them all, and traveled with them, and all around the country. And I don't know, it's just making friendships with those kind of folks, and just being around, being with them and stuff. No, it kind of took me, and I became who I am because of all those folks. They're just incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And what was the story with Buck Owens? Because when I was doing some research on you, you did a lot of regular appearances on Buck Owens' All American TV show.
Yeah.
And you know, he was the pioneer behind the Bakersfield sound of music. So what was the story with Buck Owens?
Well, I had a chance to meet Buck, and back in, I guess back in the 70s, early 70s, I believe it was. And I signed with their production company. And I started actually, when I met them, I think I had just gotten off of Columbia Records. And but Buck had the production company with Capitol Records. And I went on that with him, and he produced some sessions for me, and out of Bakersfield, his studio and his musicians out of Bakersfield. But Buck was a great guy, and he just had a special way about him, and it was for a guy like me who would look at somebody and learn from it. I learned a whole lot from Buck. I learned a lot of things from Buck, and being with them and the enthusiasm they had for what everybody was doing. And we got a chance to work together, a lot of shows together, travel around the country together. We came up to Canada together. We toured all over Canada a time or two back in those days, back in the 70s. And I got to know him when they put the TV shows together. And he had a personal TV show. And I can't remember, it's been a while and I can't remember all the names of everything, but I remember we did the soundtracks of the TV show in Bakersfield, the studio, but we went to Oklahoma City to do the video part. And it was just a lot of stuff. And I got to learn a whole lot from the great Buck Owens. I used to get a kick out of just being around him and listening to him, talking, laughing with him. And he was an amazing man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a huge record collector. I like listening to the old styles of country music. I love the traditional sound of it. So I've collected a lot of Kenny Rogers records, Merle Haggard's records. And then I found this at a record store. I thought it was really cool. It was just a really cool collaboration of Buck Owens, George Jones, and a lot of Johnny Cash as well. And Webb Pierce as well.
Webb Pierce, yeah.
Yeah. I also had the Merle Haggard, It's All in the Game record. And what a great record. And it's so, fulfilling to hear such a, truth-telling record. And, I've asked a lot of the artists, do you believe that country music is three chords and the truth? And now I want to ask you, do you believe that's true?
I believe that we had some great songwriters in our part of the business and all the different parts of music. And I love all music, not just the classic country music, but that's where I am. It's a classic country music. But I love all music, and I think there's a place for for all of it, evidently, and it works. I was a big fan of Buddy Holly. I don't know if you remember the great Buddy Holly, and I was a huge fan of his, and I think everybody has their favorites. And Johnny Cash was one at the top of my list, and Lefty and Merle Haggard, obviously. Marty Robbins we toured with him a whole lot back in the early '80s, and he was just one of the great people. And one thing you didn't want to do was to follow him on the stage. It was the first thing. Not only did I learn a lot of things that I should do, but I learned a few things that I shouldn't do. And one of them was to follow Marty Robbins when he was entertaining. He was an incredible man. But I think everybody has their own story to tell and their own life, to go. And I can tell you right now that I have seriously been blessed. And that's just being the brother of Lefty Frizzell, the friend of Merle Haggard, and all these kind of people. And it's just made me who I am, whoever that is.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about your song, You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, with the great Shelly West.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm a big fan of Country Road TV. I was watching your video with performing with Shelly West when you were, I think, pretty young in your career, with Shelly West and Country Road TV performing You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma. And I was like, wow, this is just timeless performance and a timeless song. Can you talk to me about the creation behind that?
Well, I tell you what, that was back in the days when I was with Buck Owens and them out of Bakersfield, living out of Bakersfield. My brother Lefty had moved back to Nashville, and about 1960, 1961, he moved from the San Fernando Valley out here to Nashville. And I went in the Air Force. They was getting ready. I was with Lefty touring around all over the country when I was told that I was being ready to have to go into the Army, and that's great. But I didn't particularly want to go in the Army, so I went and joined the Air Force. So I went into the Air Force. I had to leave Lefty to go do it. But during that time, Lefty moved back to Nashville, and when I was living out of the Bakersfield area, and then I went to work with Buck when I got out of the Air Force, and then I went back. But at that time, one of the things that made it obvious to me was that Lefty started out with hit songs. He wrote those great songs, "Love You 1,000 Ways," "Mom and Dad Was," "If You Got the Mind, Got the Time" was the first one. And I realized that I couldn't make it out here. David Frizzell couldn't make it out here always singing Lefty songs. It was wonderful, but David needed his own songs. I needed my songs. So I was always on the look for a hit song. And there's a lot of stories that maybe we'll get back together again, for maybe one of these days, and I can go into some of these particular stories about me trying to find a hit song. But I did finally with Snuff Garrett, who was out of Hollywood, and was producing the soundtracks for Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds movies. He was doing the soundtracks for their movies, and I got in with him. And he's the one that actually found You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma. And actually, he's the one that found I'm Going to Hire a Wino, Decorate a Home, all the hits that I had. That's just some of the hits that I had. But the Oklahoma song was the first one. And he sent me that song, and I was on the road, and he sent that song to me. And I heard it for the first time in my bus driving down the road, and to do some shows. And when I heard You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, I knew, I just had a feeling in my heart that this is a hit song. And so next thing I did was to find Shelly West, who was running with my brother Alan Frizzell, and they end up getting married and all of that, and have a beautiful babies. And and I got a chance to find that great song, and got a chance to record it, and recorded it, the album. And Snuff Garrett was with Clint Eastwood one day, and we did the album and getting ready to try to place it into a record label of some kind. And so Snuff Garrett called me up and said, I was with Clint Eastwood, had him in the car. He said, we're coming back from a art show in Palm Springs. We're coming back to LA. He says, and I had the song, had the album with me. He said, and he said, I knew that Clint was not going to jump out of the car. He said, well, I'm going 70. I knew he wasn't going to jump. He said, so I played him the Oklahoma song. And he said, after the song played, he said, it was quiet there for a second. Finally, Clint Eastwood said, man, that's a pistol. He said, let's put that in my next movie. So it's exactly what they did. They put it in the Clint Eastwood's movie, Any Which Way You Can. And that was the first time anybody heard that song, was off of that soundtrack album. And it got so much play off of the soundtrack album from DJs around the country, that the Warner Brothers put the whole album out. And we had a #1 record because of Clint Eastwood and Snuff Garrett and all those great players on it. Oh my goodness, an incredible song.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you be willing to play that song for us now?
You want to hear a little bit of that?
Yeah, You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma.
There's a full moon over Tulsa. I hope that it's shining on you. The nights are getting colder in Cherokee County. It's a blue northern passing through. I remember green eyes and a rancher's dawn. Remembers all that I do. And losing you left a pretty good cowboy with nothing to hold on to. Sundown came and I drove to town to drink a drink or two. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. And I'm sure missing you. And I'm sure missing you. Then Shelly West came with her part. Hear the city lights outshine the moon. I was just now thinking of you. Sometimes when the wind blows, you can see the mountains all the way to Malibu. Everyone's a star here in LA County. You ought to see the things they do. All the cowboys on the Sunset Strip are wishing they could be like you. Santa Monica Freeway sometimes makes the country girl blue. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. And I'm sure missing you. Hey, I worked 10 hours on a John Deere tractor, just thinking of you all day. She's got a calico cat and a 2-room flat on the street in West LA. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. You're the reason God made Oklahoma. And I'm sure missing you. I'm sure missing you. Been a lot better if Shelly'd been here.
No doubt, no doubt. That's just a timeless song. I was just singing that song before you came on for an interview.
I like to hear you sing it.
I really love that song. You know, you're the reason God made Oklahoma. You know, it's just a great song.
There's something about it, isn't it? I think it would have been a hit, anybody that would have sung it, but I'm awfully glad that me and Shelly West did it. And It's one of those, and I was just always on a lookout for what I thought would be a hit song. And the Vinyl Song ended up being another one of those. And I've just been lucky and been blessed, as I mentioned to you before. And, some of those songs, especially the Oklahoma song, it's just an incredible written song and everything. I was really, really honored to be, part of the one that sang it.
Absolutely. And with that song, You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, it was CMA Song of the Year, Vocal Duet of the Year, Best Country Performance by a Duo or Group, a Vocal Grammy nomination, featured in Clint Eastwood's film Any Which Way You Can, ACM Vocal Duo of the Year in 1981 and 1982. When you think back on that song when it first came out, and you initially thought that it was going to be a hit when you first heard it, did you feel like, after all these achievements with that song, do you feel now gratified by this song?
Oh, absolutely. The song that tells everybody who I am is that song, and I tell you what, I worked with Shelly West for quite a while, and she's just one of the most talented people. She was just somebody. I guess I got to tell you this real quick, and then I'll go on. But is that we'd get ready to sing something, and I'd say, well, Shelly, how you think we want to do this? She said, David, go out and sing it any way you want to. I'll be right there with you no matter what you do. I could go out and sing that anything, any way that David wanted to sing it, and the harmony would be right there. Every little thing I did, she did the same thing. And we do that on live, all of our shows around the world, not only around the country, but around the world. Her and I would sing that song. And no matter what I did, how I phrased it, no matter how I did, if I went up on a note here, down on a note, or twisted it around or whatever, she'd do the same thing. And we'd do it right at the same time. She was the most amazing, incredibly amazing, talented young lady, just amazing. Love that lady.
Absolutely. And you had I think it was your first song, which was I Just Can't Help Believing. Which was also a really good song by yourself. And I really want to also stress this enough that there was, I think it was Vince Gill who recorded it, covered it, I guess, and then it was Elvis Presley who did a version of that song as well. What was the story with Elvis Presley?
Well, everybody's a fan of Elvis Presley. I don't even know anybody who's not a fan of Elvis Presley. And I tell you, just between us right now, is that Elvis was a huge fan of Lefty's, and was constantly getting in touch with Lefty and trying to get Lefty to send him some songs and so forth. He called him. When he was, I think it was 1956, somewhere in there, when he was doing a song, a movie called Jailhouse Rock. I'm not exactly sure what the date is right now, but I think it was back in 1956, 55, 56. And Lefty lived out of San Fernando Valley, as I said, and Elvis was doing the movie in Hollywood. And the management for Elvis got in touch with Lefty's management and asked if Lefty would come over and play some pool with Elvis while they was making that movie. And so anyway, Elvis was a huge Lefty fan. We was a huge Elvis fans. And but that song is kind of a hard song to sing. It's got, for some reason, you have to, it's nice to have the lyric in front of it, because sometimes you can't always remember the lyric. And I remember watching Elvis on a TV show. He was being on, I forget what show it was. Might have been the Perry Como show or the Ed Sullivan show, whatever, one of those, a big show. And he was going to do that song, and he messed it up to start with, and then they brought out the lyric, and somebody brought the lyrics out to him on the stage, and he sang the song. But it's Leslie Uggams also recorded that song. B.J. Thomas is the one that I heard is the first. He had the first version of it. I had the country version of it, and then everybody else after that had their own version of it. What a great song it was, but it's hard to remember the words to it.
Absolutely. And obviously Lisa Marie Presley, who passed away just not too long ago. If there was any message for Priscilla and the family, what would it be?
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, I tell you what, you don't have any, most time you don't have any control over everything that happens all around you all the time. And I think those folks made the most of just everything, and bless their hearts. They was around one of the most talented people in the entire world, Elvis Presley. And so I just wish them all my heart goes out to them. You know, everybody has to deal with those kind of things when they happen the best way they can. And I just wish the best for them.
Absolutely. And while we're wrapping up here, I want to ask you, if you were to play a song with anybody who's in heaven already, who would it be and what song would you play?
Oh my goodness, well, there's so many. There's so many. Most of my heroes are in heaven at this moment, and Jesus Christ being the one of the main ones. But my brother Lefty, Merle Haggard, Marty Robbins, Johnny Cash, they're all there. And I know they're not waiting for me, but I'm going to show up. I am going to show up and find them. And the show is on. So I appreciate your time today, buddy. And it's nice to meet you. And nice to see you. We'll see you maybe here in Nashville at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we'll get to do a duet of You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma.
We'll do it. If you come down here, buddy, we'll do it if that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do it. Thank you, pal.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. To the listeners who made it this far into the episode, thanks so much for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with David Frizzell, American country singer-songwriter. You can listen to my show on all podcast streaming platforms. I've been your host, Jigme Kelsang. Thanks for tuning into the show.